All right, fine. You want a Roman? I'll give you a Roman whiteboard. All right, since we're talking about Scotland and England. Romans in England. Let's do it. Let's do a whiteboard. Let's keep it in Roman and the British Isles. Let's talk about Boudica. Y'all remember how I told y'all about Olga of Kiev and how she was a badass? Well, she was remembered in history because she, you know, got to the ripe old age and did everything and was successful. Let me tell you about Boudica and how Boudica basically made the Romans not want to be there anymore. All right, so let's go back to early, just before the turn of the 0 to 1, right? The BCE to, what do we call it now? ACD now, or AC? What is it? Instead of BC and AD, they called it something else now. Whatever. So let's go back. Let's go back to around 62 BC. All right. For some reason, when people hear BC, they think of cavemen. They forget that there's a whole bunch of history. Okay, so the Romans were up in England, right, or in the British Isles, and they had the British Isles up there, and they had Hadrian's Wall and all that good stuff. They were getting up there. Well, Nero is the emperor of Rome. Now, if you know anything about Nero, Nero was a cuckoo. Okay, had a lot of fucking problems. All right, a lot of them were, but he was one of those ones. He was kind of a wild ass motherfucker, and he had a lot of debt too because he was always doing like crazy games and he was doing wars and all this other crazy shit, right? So the Romans are in the British Isles and they've already been there for a while. They've got Londinium, which is London. They've got all these little like things. They've built the roads, which by the way are still there to this day, and they're doing everything. But the Romans were not nice people, okay? They were conquerors and they were settlers and they were what do you call it? Colonizers, whatever you want to call the word. And so they decide, hey, listen, let's keep expanding. And they fought a bunch of tribes and they beat the shit out of them. But they didn't want to take all this land that was just in the middle of nowhere. So they figured instead of like keeping chabs on them and keeping them, keeping our manpower and stuff like that, let's just beat their ass and then subjugate them. And so they started taxing the tribes, right? Here's the problem. Nero needed more money. So what do? All right, let's give them loans. Let's give them loans with a bunch of our money, right? Because we need our money to be in circulation and make it worth more, and we need to do it. So they forced these guys, all these tribes, to take on these loans with interest. And they didn't want the loans. They didn't want their money. They didn't use money. They traded amongst each other, but they were forced to do it because the only way that they were able to buy supplies and do things because of all the regulations was to buy it from the Romans and the merchants, and they had to buy it in this currency. So they were forced to take it. They got the currencies, the septimians, whatever, and at interest. So that's going on for a little while. Then Nero says, hey, I need more money, okay? I need more money. He's always needs more money, okay? Sounds like some of you guys out there, okay? In the meantime, you've got one of those tribes, right? And it's up in I think, what is it, York or Norfolk or whatever, whatever the fucking weird name you guys have. And so they have the Icenians, right? The Iceni tribe. And in this tribe, there is a war king, right? A warlord king. And he's there and he is dealing with the Romans, but he's like what they call like friendly with the Romans, right? Like he's like a tribe where it's like, I want to stay in good graces. So what does he do? He says, listen, when I die, I'm going to split my kingdom into two. I am going to split my kingdom and half of it goes to Rome and half of it goes to my two daughters. And that was like, okay, the Romans agree, like, hey, listen, we appreciate that, and in return, we'll make sure that you are treated favorably, okay? And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to do this. Everything's going good, right? Everything's great. The rest of everybody else is kind of struggling, but, this is pacifying them. Well, he dies. So what happens? As they had agreed on, half of his kingdom goes to the Romans, half goes to his daughters. Nope. Romans said, we're not going to honor a draft that was written up with a fucking savage. It's ours. So they decide they're going to go in and make sure that they have the full part of the kingdom. Well, they march on into the little capital there and they say it's ours. And not only are they saying it's ours, we are going to, force you guys out. And when they do that, the king's wife, Boudica, she was known. The only thing we have is Roman, contemporary, things. We don't have anything from the Britons, but based on what they were saying and some of the history, she was very tall. She was a tall mommy with long red hair. And when they go to tell them that this is their land now, she steps up and says, no, it was my husband's. I will be running it until my daughters are of age to take it. And what do the Romans do? The Romans then assault the two daughters in front of her. She tries to intervene. They strap her up and flog her bloody in front of all of her people. So now they have assaulted her two daughters. And if you don't understand what I mean, I'm not going to explain it. Then flogged her bloody as a warning. But they didn't kill her. And that's where they fucked up. So they leave thinking they have made their point. Boudica then calls on a council and a meeting with all of the tribal leaders and says, listen, this is enough. Look at what they did to me and my daughters. They're going to do it to you and your daughters and your wives, and they're going to do it too. One by one, they will systematically do this unless we stop them. And people were like, holy shit, you're right. And they want her to lead them, right? Because this is a pissed off fucking woman. And she is tall, she's strong, she carries a tall spear. They're trained in combat. They want her leader. This has gotten so bad that the fucking Celts stop fighting everybody. Because the Celts they don't like anybody. They don't even like each other. Like, they literally just are always killing each other. It doesn't even, there's no reason. It's just like, your face paint is different than mine. Let's fucking die. Like, the Celts, my tree god is different. Lightning struck your tree god, meaning you're weak. We got to fight you. It's weird. The Celts organize. And so they organize this massive army of 100,000 people. Now, I want you to understand this. 100,000 fucking people get together of all these fractured tribes over the entire island. That's a lot of fucking people. They then make her their queen. So now Boudica is the queen of 100,000 army of pissed off people. Now it's time to go fuck some shit up. So Boudica is leading a 100,000 person army south. The Romans have no idea that this is happening. Because remember how I said they didn't leave any guard posts and they leave any contingents up there? They're just like, we'll make them pay tribute and shit like that. They figure, yeah, we showed those motherfuckers. No. There is 100,000 person army marching south. And Boudica, not only was she a warrior, but she watched as her husband lost to the Romans years before and learned from it. And she realized that the reason that they were able to do this was because the Romans were able to be very organized and were able to do all these things. And she figured that if we're able to break up their formation and be quick, we can beat them. So what do? They get fucking chariots. A bunch of goddamn tribes and Celts and shit build fucking chariots, okay? And they get these horses, right? And they get these goddamn chariots. And they put fucking spikes on them, and they've got spears and shit. All right, and you got 100,000 people. None of them speak the same language, but they all understand one thing. And they start marching south. And they make their way to the first Roman city, okay? They make their way to the first Roman city. They ain't fucking around, okay? They get there. Now, the Romans, remember, don't know that this is happening. They don't know this is happening. So they go to a city called Camulundunium. It's some fucking Roman name. I don't remember exactly what it was. Columundumnumian or whatever like that. Get there, okay? Get to the first city. They get to the first city, and remember, these guys are pissed off. Now, you're not making excuses for atrocities. You never are. But these guys are really, really pissed off. And they get there, and they just wipe it out. They kill everyone in there. I think they spared maybe some women and children, but like, if you were a man and you were in this city, you died. You died. There was no mercy shown. That was it. It's over. You're wiped out. So they go there and they wipe this city out. They burn it to the ground. Well, here's the problem. Guess what's next? Guess what city is next? Because that's the only city before you get to London. Okay, it's the only city you get to have before you get to London. And there's no one to defend this, because remember, the whole reason that they built Hadrian's Wall and withdrew all these people is Rome needed their soldiers. They needed everything else there. This land wasn't worth it, so they just kept whatever. They were very much overpowering these tribes. They weren't coalesced, and so it was an easy time, right? Like just hanging on to the British Isles. So after the generals leave to go do a patrol somewhere else in Wales, like the only Romans that were there and the general that was in charge of the Roman military that was on the islands, they go out to Wales. Okay, they take off to Wales, and so it's time to deal with this. So what do? Well, they hear that there is a military led by a woman, and what do the Romans do? They send 200 unarmed slaves to go put down a rebellion. That's what they do. There's no way an army of a bunch of fucking tree huggers led by a woman are going to be a thing. We'll send 200 unarmed slaves. Thanks for the 200 people, by the way. They now make their way to London. But the Romans realize, oh shit, we fucked up. So now they say, okay, we're going to send 2,500 soldiers. And they go to intercept them. But they didn't realize how big the army was. Boudica and her military actually go surround them, start killing them. They and all of the civilian population run and hide in a temple. They surround it, burn the temple to the ground, fucking wipe all of them out. Now it's time for London. Head to London, burn it to the fucking ground. But guess what? Here's another kicker. They burn London to the ground. Like, if they've gone back and done archaeological sites, it's like the entire ground at that level is just soot and ash. There were 100,000 slaves, tribal slaves and other slaves in London. Guess what? We just doubled our army. 200,000 people. They have just wiped out 3 cities, including the biggest one in London, doubled their sizes. Now it's time to finish the fucking game. They have gone down, burned. It's time to head towards, remember they went to Wales? It's time to go finish this off, crush it. They start taking 200,000 people out west. And they brought their families too. Now that's going to come back to haunt them in a little bit. All right, I know I'm taking too long in this story, but it's kind of like an interesting story. I'm trying to play this out for you. Boudica, 200,000 people start heading west. They are about to crush the Romans, and that's it. They've got the island. They've won their independence. It is over. They kicked the Romans' ass. The Romans can't come back to England. And the crazy thing is that when she started marching, Nero considered withdrawing the last of his military. This was almost the end. Nero was like, oh shit, somebody fucked up. We need to get out of here. We're going to withdraw our troops and just let them have the island. We weren't getting anything from it anyways. We got some taxes and some stuff like that. And but it's just not worth it. We're out of here. But no, the general that is there says no. They have killed 70 to 80,000 Romans. Probably exaggerated, but that's what it is. We have to stop them. And Nero says, you know what? I guess fuck it, whatever. So what does he do? He gets together the remaining 5,000 Romans, but then does a plea and says to all of the retired and, older, soldiers or whatever, listen, you know how you live on this island, you have slaves and you have all this good life? It's in danger if we don't stop them. So another 5,000 vets join. They have 10,000. Now you might say to yourself, 10,000 Roman soldiers is nothing compared to 200,000 Celts and tribals. That's where you'd be wrong. They end up heading out west. I'm almost done. I'm sorry. I know I get too much into these stories, but whatever. They start heading out west. They're doing guerrilla style tactics. It's working. And then they get to Watling Street or whatever. Okay, the Battle of Watling Street. It is time. You now have 200,000 troops against 10,000. But here is where experience comes into play. The Romans decided that they were going to put themselves strategically. Okay, there is a forest behind them. You could dip in, you whatever. They've got a hill over here, and there's water over here. And so they decide this is where they're going to make their stand. Now remember, Boudica's pissed off, but she doesn't have a lot of experience. She's gained some. And all these people, they don't speak language. They start doing their chariot charges. They start heading there. But the Romans do one of those shield walls. And they put their shield wall up, and these guys come flying in, right? All of these people start flying in. They hit the shield, and then they do the thing where they stab and then pull out. And so they're dropping like flies. And so they decide, let's do our chariot charge. But they can't do the chariot charge from the sides, right? Or from behind, right? Because there's forest here. You can't bring all the horses and chariots through there. There's a hill here. So you have to go straight forward. But a chariot charge only works if you actually break through the wall or cause them to scatter. They're mowing them down. So here's the thing. They're still way outnumbered. They can still do this. All they got to do is be quick and move out and then flank. Oh shit, here's the problem. Remember how they all brought their families with them? There is a wagon train behind all of these troops. They trap themselves. Now the Romans start throwing spears. Once these guys go to turn and they realize they're trapped, panic ensues. And it's like shooting fish in a barrel. Not only were they trapped, their families watched them be slaughtered. They couldn't maneuver around. And at the end of the day, 400 Romans died, 80,000 Celts, tribespeople died. Did ChatGPT make this up for you? No, this is all from memory. I'm probably missing a bunch of shit. Now, Boudica didn't die. Did the Romans publish these numbers? Yes. Remember what I told you? The Romans were there's only 2 accounts, I think, 2 or 3 accounts. This is all from Roman scribes, so a lot of things are over-exaggerated. Like the 70 to 80,000 civilians killed in London and the other cities were probably overdone because it makes the Romans look like, they're victims. And the 80, whatever. Regardless, these are the only numbers we have. Boudica survives, but she goes off and dies. Some people think she got wounded and died. Some people think she got sick and died. Some people think she poisoned herself, which was the way you did it as a warrior queen back then. But the last stand, this was basically the opposite of the Spartans, which is a whole other story. But yeah, so had they had been more organized, had they had known that the terrain was not favorable, or had they not had that wagon train, this probably would have ended a lot differently. And the Romans probably would have lost everything as well. But that, ladies and gentlemen, since you wanted a whiteboard on Rome, and somebody brought up Scotland and the British Isles, this is the only one I can really think of right now. That is the story of Boudica, the warrior queen. History books will not teach you about this. Number one, because it doesn't really sound cool because the end wasn't a happy ending.